I saw you doing another contract.
What's that?
You doing another contract?
Well, no, I've got like a written year kind of thing, but
Oh, that's right. Man. I saw that you had a client question.
yeah. So I've got one of them is happy buyer, so I'm so happy for her. I'm like, it's so good. But the other one, I sent a message to him because I want to get you to see his house. I called him, and he's like, let me get back to you. I'll check with my client and see if that's okay. That was on Thursday. And then here I get back Friday. So Saturday I tried again. Didn't get him. Left a message. Didn't get him. I was supposed to see him on Sunday. Still haven't sent. Started Sunday. Haven't heard anything. So I'm like, I told my client, haven't heard back. I was supposed to go. We're working on it. So that's how when I called the office, and they're like, yeah, we're asking if people will buy and look at it first because it's so close to an unsightly trailer that seems to be an issue. So before we even show it, the client seems so I'm like, okay, but at least you communicate.
Yeah.
Kathy, is anyone else walking around up there?
Just Joe.
Okay. Guess we can go ahead and get started then. So for any of you who have been here since at least May, you will have seen a sort of similar presentation from me as to what we're doing this morning. However, this topic, cybersecurity, is important enough and complicated enough that we're going to do it at least a couple times a year. A refresher and an update on anything that's new that you need to know about. I made an analogy yesterday in Harrisonburg and realized it was slightly off. I told them that it was like when you teach kids to swim in the ocean for the first time. You want them to develop a healthy fear of the ocean. And the point of these is to help you develop a healthy fear of the internet. The difference is you've all been swimming in the ocean already and for however long. So the point is to expose you to how dangerous it can really be. Not just to scare you, but so that you can be knowledgeable enough about it to protect yourself and your clients. You are, as realtors, targeted more than almost anyone else in the world by cyber criminals for a few reasons. One, because your information is just plastered all over the internet. For starters, they have easy access to most things about you, at least your contact information. Second, you have relationships with lots of people, trusting relationships often formed on a very short-term basis. Clients haven't known you for very long, but if you tell them to do something, they're likely to do it without asking many questions. And then lastly, you're dealing with huge sums of money, which is the real kicker that the criminals are after. So big surprise here, but one of the biggest topics in cybersecurity is email scams. These are some statistics from 2019. I think some of the most notable are that over 90% of malware is delivered via email. That number keeps going up because antivirus software and even just the default code built into operating systems and web browsers is getting better and better to the point where it's harder for hackers to just put stuff on your computer without you knowing about it. So they're having to resort to tricking you. Also that DocuSign lures are the most effective. For us, it would be dotloop if someone targeted us enough to know that you use dotloop, but other realtors use DocuSign just as much as we use dotloop. And that kind of scam, something that you see all the time, but that can be easily spoofed, is the most effective. And then, of course, $35 million lost in the last year to email scams alone, and that's just what we know about what had been reported to the authorities. When we're talking about email scams, most of the time the point is for them to phish information from you. Phishing in this context with a PH means trying to collect information against someone's will or without their knowledge. Some easy examples would be, and I'll show you some later, but just to put it in your head, you get an email that says, click here to view this document, and you click there, and instead of seeing a document, you see a login screen. And you think, oh, okay, I have to log into my Microsoft account to look at this, but in reality, that website isn't real, and all you're doing is sending your login information to the hacker. It's not about putting a virus on your computer. I get that question a lot when email scams go around. People will say, I opened it, but I didn't click on the link. Do you think I got a virus? Or I clicked on the link, but nothing downloaded. Do you think I got a virus? And nowadays, that's most of the time not the point. The point is, did you give them any information? So, from your perspective, the best thing you can do is recognize types of emails like this before you actually act on them. Before you click the link and realize, I know that's my right password, but it didn't log me in. Maybe this is a little fishy. And so we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And you see it whenever popular scams go around to everyone in the office. John or I will send a notice out to everybody and explain that it's a scam. But these are the things that we're looking for. The most common would be hyperlinks that when you hover over them don't go to where they say they go to, and sender addresses that are slightly misspelled. All of this is a subset of what we call social engineering. Social engineering in the context of internet fraud is, like I said before, an effort by criminals to trick you into giving them something. There are a lot of different subsets of social engineering, and I want to take a little bit of time and just explain and give examples to you so that you have it in your head that these are things that people do. I can't tell you how many times I've explained to someone why something is fraudulent or why it's a scam, and they'll say, that makes sense, but it never would have occurred to me that someone would do that. So, for example, these are some of the more popular ones. Pretexting is what we call a scam where there is some sort of fake invented scenario. A popular one that stemmed from a Yahoo breach a few years ago. Someone hacked the Yahoo servers and got passwords for users on their Yahoo accounts. Then went out on the internet and tried to troll and find out if these Yahoo users had other email addresses. And then they would just operate on the assumption that you use that same password for other things. So they'd write you an email, even maybe to your ClineMay address, and they'd say, I have your password. It's this. And that's the first line of the email. And it's your real password because they hacked Yahoo. And so then you're thinking, okay, wow, this is serious. And then they say something like, not only do I have your password, I've used it to take control of your entire computer, and I hacked your webcam and recorded you while you were watching that site you weren't supposed to be watching. And whether you did or not, they're telling you that they did, and they have your real password, so you're freaking out that they fabricated something. And they say, I'm going to send it to everyone on your address list unless you pay me 3 Bitcoin.
How much is that?
Oh, that's actually a lot. It's like $30,000. Usually they ask for like 1/10 of a Bitcoin.
Right.
But the point is they ask for money in exchange for not leaking this, and you're freaking out because they have your password. That's what we call pretexting, where they invent that scenario to scare you into submitting. Your real response there should be to ignore the email and change any account that uses that password. Phishing, we talked about before. This is any attempt to fool you into giving them information, usually login information, but sometimes credit card or social security number, anything like that. Water holing is a technique. We use that term to describe when you're being targeted more specifically, and they can track what websites you frequent. Maybe that's because you used public Wi-Fi at Starbucks and they could track your web traffic while you were sitting there. And so then they'll develop a scam based on the websites that you like to go to so that you're more likely to trust the message that you get. Quid pro quo is what it sounds like. The point is they're creating a scenario where you feel like you're getting something in exchange for giving up your information. For example, they might impersonate me if they did enough research to understand my position here at the company, and they'd send you an email and say, hey, it's Spencer, we're rolling out a security patch to all the email accounts. I just need your email password, and then in a couple of minutes you're going to get a code texted on your phone. Send me that too, and then I'll update your account for you. And then there, if you didn't recognize that it wasn't actually me.
He already has our passwords.
Well, not all. I can just change it. The two-factor authentication is really a great line of defense. Even if my account got hacked, which it also has two-factor authentication and a good password, but even if it did and someone tried to change your email password, they wouldn't be able to get in without your phone anyway. So we'll talk later about people trying to create ways to even get past your two-factor authentication, but it's a huge step up in security from accounts without it. Honey traps and tailgating are kind of similar in that they're more geared towards real-world scenarios. They either try to bait you with free money or coupons for something, or you've won a sweepstakes, or even some attempt to gain access to a physical location. They might pose as a potential client just to get in the building here and get on our Wi-Fi network. Which is why we tell you to give clients the guest password and not the real one. It's segmented off from everything else. Diversion theft is where wire fraud would fall under. We'll talk about that more later too, and we have in the past, but wire fraud is one of the biggest concerns in the real estate industry. I'll go more into detail with wire fraud later, but the brief rundown is someone would try to get false wiring instructions into the hand of someone about to send payment for a closing. And then the money doesn't go to the right place, it goes to the hackers instead. We'll get into that more later. Spear phishing is just a type of phishing where you're targeted more specifically, and this happens a lot even at Klein May. Someone will impersonate Carl Keith. Chris Rooker of the Harrisonburg Homes team they've had this happen to them at least 5 times that I know of. So we'll use them as the example. They impersonate Chris Rooker and they send an email to everyone else on his team. It says, hey, are you in the office? I need a favor. And if they write back, the hacker will say, I'm starting an incentive-based program. I need you to go out and get 7 $500 gift cards. Keep one for yourself. Give me the rest of the codes and I'll reimburse you. Because they've targeted that team enough to know that Chris would be the one in the position to do something like that. Baiting is another kind of similar to honey traps where they dangle something in front of you, but not always positive. For example, if they impersonated Keith or Rebecca or somebody and sent an email to the staff members at Klein May and the subject was Q1 layoff plan, we'd all open it up pretty quick. So that's the kind of thing that we would call baiting. We talked about tailgating a little bit, and then rogue software is straying away from communication-based scams. This is something that they would just post advertisements for, but it's software that doesn't do what it says it does, yet still tries to either put viruses on your computer or it's not harmful, but they make you pay for it even though it doesn't do anything. A popular example was for Mac computers, which people think are more impervious to this kind of thing, but they're not always. There was a program called Mac Keeper that was very popular for years, just because they spent so much money on advertising. And I think towards the end, it was purchased by someone who turned it into a legitimate program, but it got its start as a program that would do nothing but slow your computer down until you clicked the button, and then it would speed it back up. It's almost like it was causing problems just to fix it, and then they had a premium version that was $20 a month, and that's what they wanted to do. So here are some real life examples of things that actually happened that you would be in a prime position to have to deal with. For starters, this one is from PayPal, which they could send not knowing whether you use it or not, or they could target someone that they know has a business that accepts payment via PayPal. This login link right here would not take you to the real PayPal login page. It would take you to one that they created. And then instead of logging into PayPal, you've just given them your account information, and they log in and transfer all your money. The way around this one would be to hover over that link and see where it goes before you click it. Another one here is something that looks a lot like Microsoft emails that you might potentially have because you're all owners of a Microsoft Office 365 email account. Says that this account your account's been signed into from Nigeria. This IP address on this date. Click here to review recent activity, or they even include a 1-800 number. And in this case, this really happened. The people on the other end of that 1-800 number were not Microsoft, it was the hacker. But they had someone there ready to answer the phone as Microsoft and convince you that you needed to give them your account information to secure your account. These are now, the next two slides are a couple examples of what phishing pages can look like. If you don't catch that the email is a scam and you click the link, this looks really close to the actual Google login page. If not exactly, I can't find anything wrong with it, except the email at the top. And it's been, the URL, sorry, not the email. It's been blurred out in this screenshot because the post, the article that was giving all these examples didn't want people to type it in for whatever reason. But the point is, the hackers just designed this page. They recreated the Google login page, and the code behind the page does nothing but send the inputs from those fields, email and password, straight to them. When you hit sign in, it'll tell you your password was wrong, even if it's not, and then it sends them your information. And if you think it's wrong and you try every other password that you've ever used in your life, because you just think, okay, well, I guess I didn't remember my password, now they have all those too. Here's another one for Adobe, and these can be very convincing. They're getting really good at it. It's not always just websites either. I think the most common thing that we see is a click here type of email and then a website like this, but it can also be attachments to emails. If you ever receive a document and you open it up and you don't actually see the document, you have to sign into it, that should be a huge red flag. Microsoft Word documents, PDFs that you open in Adobe can have malicious code built into them that executes itself automatically to do things like installing keyloggers onto your computer that track every single keystroke and sends it to the people that put it there. They can install Trojan horse viruses, all sorts of stuff, ransomware even, just from a Word document that has .doc at the end of it that looks completely safe. Microsoft protects against this kind of thing by making you manually enable its ability to do stuff like that if it's not a document that you created yourself. So in this example, the hackers created a document and there's no content. The only thing on this whole document are these instructions. And the yellow bar at the top is Microsoft's warning saying, hey, macros have been disabled. Macros are that type of code. You have to click here to manually enable it. So the hackers made up this document, and the first instruction says, previewing online will not work for protected documents. Number 2, if you downloaded this document from your email, which they know you did, click enable editing from the yellow bar above, which is a warning saying, hey, don't enable editing if you don't know what it does. Number 3, once you hit enable editing, hit enable content on the yellow bar above, which is another warning saying, hey, don't enable content if you don't know what it does. But because you're just going to follow those instructions, it'll go right through and execute all its code. So just because it's a Word document or just because it's a PDF doesn't mean it's safe. People are also targeted through social media. This is just a little screenshot of a Facebook message, but the point is to show that this file is designed to look like a picture, but it's really an SVG file, and you don't need to care about what that stands for, but it's something that can execute a function on the computer. In this case, it opened up a web page that looks like YouTube, but really what it's trying to do is install an extension into Google Chrome. Chrome extensions are, for the most part, perfectly fine. They can do things like show you coupons on websites when there's a discount code available, or keep track of your email for you, or have a quick link to the weather, or all sorts of stuff. Even ad blockers are Chrome extensions, or whatever browser you're using. Because they can do such a wide variety of stuff, though, there are plenty of malicious extensions out there. So in this case, Facebook message went around. Here's a photo. If you click on it, it wants you to install this extension. If you don't know that extensions can be dangerous, you install it, and then boom, there's ransomware on your computer. Or there's a keylogger on your computer just because you installed this extension. Social media can also be exploited, not necessarily just to get you to click on something, but even on the sites that you don't use very often. Here's an example from LinkedIn. These hackers made a LinkedIn account that looks like it's from Wells Fargo. And they want you to click that link, but they'll send it to you on LinkedIn, not necessarily because they think you use it, but because if you have a LinkedIn account tied to your email address, whenever you get a message, it sends you an email from LinkedIn and shows you what the message was. Because it comes from the real LinkedIn site, it won't go to spam, it won't get filtered as malicious or anything. And these buttons, reply or not interested, the actual links in the email are perfectly fine. This is a real email from LinkedIn. However, this cabinet whatever.com URL was in the message that they sent, and that's the malicious part. However, they've just bypassed all your email filters because they did it through social media. In this case, that link forwards to a site that looks like this. And hundreds of people around the country fell for it. This form asks for your Wells Fargo username, password, social security number, credit card number, full name, phone number, driver's license number, mother's maiden name, date of birth, email address, email password. Yeah. Lastly, and back on the side of social engineering and wire fraud, I want to explain, and we covered this back in May when I did this, but I want to again explain how wire fraud happens in real estate, because this is a huge concern. If you have not been in the past, you will be targeted by this. All it takes for them to get started is to get into one of the email inboxes involved in your deal. Whether that's you, the agent on the other side, any of the clients involved, anyone who is in the circle of communication, anyone who's going to know who the agents involved are, who the title agent is, what banks are being used, that kind of thing. That's all the information they need. So let me run you through a scenario. Spoiler alert, this really happened. A client gets hacked. They have a Gmail account or a Yahoo or whatever. They don't have two-factor authentication. They fall for a scam. They get hacked somehow. There's no way to know after the fact. The hacker just sits there and waits once they realize, hey, this person's trying to buy a house. So they wait until the closing is about to happen, which they'll know because they're watching all these emails. And then when the closing is about to happen, they make a couple of fake email accounts to impersonate some of the people involved, which is not hard to do, and if you're good at it, you can be very convincing. I made a joke that I guess isn't really funny because it's a little scary. The first time that this happened to someone that we know, that I could have executed this whole thing that the hacker did from my cell phone. It's that easy to do if you know how. But anyway, hacker starts to impersonate the client. They send an email to the real title agent and they say, hey, I'd like my wiring instructions, please. My bank is asking me for them. It's time to send money for escrow. And so they say, okay, well, here's your wiring instructions. But they just hit reply to the email without noticing that it's one character off, or without their email system recognizing it as a spoofed address. So now the hacker has the wiring instructions with the correct letterhead and information and everything, and they just swap out the account number for their own. Then they impersonate the title agent in the same way. They spoof the email address, they write to the client, and now the agents involved have no idea what's going on. The client has no idea what's going on, because so far the only person who has been contacted by the hacker is the title agent. So now the client gets an email out of the blue from the title agent, or so they think, that says, hey, time to send money, here's your wiring instructions. If the client hasn't been told by you or somebody else to be on the lookout for that kind of thing and to verify any instructions that have to do with money, they just print out that sheet, walk to the bank and say, send my money here. And then there's $180,000 off to San Francisco, and then it bounces out of the country. Really happened. FBI got involved and not all the money was recovered. The key there, and what you can do in addition to being on the lookout for all the types of email scams that we've been talking about so far today, is to have a conversation very early on with your client. Whether that's in your very first meeting or before you signed a contract, or at least the first time you're sitting down and walking through documents with them, preparing them for the process. Make sure that they know that anything that has to do with the transfer of money, no matter at what time it comes, they need to pick up the phone and call you and verify that it's real. Don't just reply to an email. They need to call you based on information they have. They need to initiate the contact themselves. Don't say, I'll call you anytime that there are wiring instructions, because sometimes the hackers are smart enough to call the person as well and say, hey, I'm your title agent, just wanted to call because you know there are email scams going around, even though it's the hacker on the phone at the same time. So, and then from your perspective as well, whenever you get an email from anything having to do with money from a bank or a lender or a title agent, anything, before executing anything, call and verify based on information that you already had before you got that contact.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So that scenario that Spencer mentioned happened to one of our clients in Harrisonburg. The lady was helping a family member buy a house. She was using her savings to do it, and she got scammed, and her savings disappeared. One of our agents was buying a property, investment property, 6 months ago. Deals with the same law firm all the time, the same person at the same law firm all the time. Got her wiring instructions, but because of all of this, she called and said, hey Cindy, it's Ann, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing here, and I'm verifying these wiring instructions you just sent me. And Cindy, who's the best real estate paralegal in town, said, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. And Ann said, don't joke with me. I got your wiring instructions. I'm just verifying this is the right account. Cindy said, we haven't sent you anything. And she had been hacked. If she hadn't checked, she would have sent her money to the exam.
He was in the parking lot about to walk in and send it.
Yeah. So it's and the things. So to tie it back to the spoofing, the emails that are trying to get your sign-on information, that's why. Because once they have that, they can break into your email and just lurk there and wait till the deal's about to close. And this time of year, we're all going to get fake ones from UPS and FedEx and Amazon saying, hey, your package is on the way, or hey, there's a problem with your package. Click here to sign into your account and fix it, or something to that extent. So they look really, really, really good. You've got to use that little trick and make sure the links go where they're supposed to go.
Well, something that I do when I go over the contract with my clients is I know that there's that paper when we were using our packets that, you kind of stop and you go, there's a email scan, the picture of the,
Mhm.
you mentioned that last week with the elderly couple.
We got a new one.
Okay. Anyway, so it shows that, it's a good stopping point. Don't send any money anywhere until you talk to me or the people that you've been actually dealing
Right.
with. You just need to make sure you protect yourself here. So.
And don't call a verification number that comes with the wire instructions. Look the company up and call their publicly listed number. Make sure you're not calling the news.
Any other questions about wire fraud in particular, or how to phrase it to clients or anything? Like I said in the email yesterday, this is not something that you can afford to not be savvy about. You've got to be knowledgeable enough to protect yourself and to educate your clients. Just tell them, we are going to be targeted by this. It's going to happen. You should prepare yourself. Be skeptical of everything having to do with money. So next, I want to play a short video. The title is 5 Security Tips from a Hacker. This guy now works at the NSA, but before they hired him, he was a criminal hacker. He was apparently one of the best because the NSA turned around and hired him. But now he's giving tips, the 5 best easy things you can do to protect yourself from cyber attacks. Let me turn this up a little bit. Oh.
What's the top 5 things that you can do to make yourself more secure, both a business and your Number 1, use two-factor authentication or two-step verification everywhere that you can. Your banking systems, Twitter, Facebook, all support the ability for you to enable an additional security feature that you may not know. You go to your settings, it's in there, you can enable it, and every time that you log in, it'll register your computer, and you can then get a text message to go into that system as a second form of verification. Why that's important is because if a hacker gets access to your password, they still have to have access to your phone to get access to your account. And that's really important by enabling that specific security step. Probably number 1. Number 2, don't use the same password everywhere. I know it's hard, but using the same password everywhere is one of probably the easiest ways that we break in as hackers. So if you have the same Twitter password or the same banking information, those are things that can get you in some serious trouble. Number 3, make sure that you stay up to date. Those security patches. Every time you have a Windows update that says, hey, I need to update your computer, it's usually to fix a known attack that hackers have figured out to get access to your computer. So keep up to date. Whether you're using a Mac, they aren't impervious to attack, or using Windows, same thing, update your systems. That's the most important thing. Always keep up to date with what you're having out there. Same thing for third-party applications. If you're using Java, Adobe, PDFs, Office documents, those are all things that you want to keep up to date. And that makes it much harder for us as hackers to break into your system. Number 4, social media. Be careful with how much information you actually put online. We as attackers can look at that. Look at what you do, your spending habits, what you might be doing from a day-to-day perspective, going and buying Starbucks at a certain location. Those are all things that we can use to identify when you're going to be out of the country or when you're going to be at a business meeting. You can use that as a method to attack you. One of the main things that we do as hackers, especially when it comes to social engineering, is we create a sense of urgency. Something that you're familiar with, but you have to take action upon. So let's just say, for example, I'm a Verizon customer and I have an Amazon package that's getting delivered. Well, if I, as an attacker, know an Amazon package being delivered, sending a text message from a Verizon customer support service line coming from Amazon saying, hey, your package is being rerouted, you need to log into the site to get it delivered again, is something that an attacker can use. So those are things that attackers can leverage is urgency, how you actually operate, and all that information that you post online are things that we can use as attackers. And last but not least, personal information. That's one of the biggest things that attackers can leverage to get access to your data. Things like social security numbers, your credit card numbers. A person is not going to call on the phone from a banking service and ask you for that type of information. So whenever you get a call that's too good to be true, or a call that is a fraud services line, call them back. Look at the number on the website themselves and call it back. Because a lot of times attackers will impersonate financial services, they'll impersonate different organizations to try to get your personal information and use that to be able to make fraudulent charges. So when it comes to that, your phone, verify first. Go to their site, call the site itself from there, and then talk to an actual person that's actually at that institute.
So a lot of the same things we've been talking about there. A couple ones that I'll reiterate are enable two-factor authentication, which we've forced you to do on your ClientMate email, but you should also be doing on any other email accounts you have, Gmail, whatever. You should do it on Facebook. Any account that lets you, that gives you that option, turn it on. And then also I want to add a couple more to his list. The first is to keep a current backup. Let me see a show of hands. Who has a backup of their computer within the last week? That number should be a lot higher. You pay to have backups made? So do you have one from some source?
Well, my neighbor and good friend owns a computer service, so
Okay,
he has access to my stuff to back it.
gotcha. As long as you have access to it somehow. The reason this is important is, of course, just because something could happen to your computer. You could spill coffee on it, it could be stolen, whatever. But also because ransomware is a thing that's getting popular and more effective. Ransomware is a type of cyber attack where they will install software on your computer that locks you out of it and encrypts all your data. To get back in and unencrypt your data, you need a password, and then they contact you and offer to sell you that password. That's why they call it ransomware. If you have a backup of your computer, you can just wipe your hard drive and restore your backup and be done with it. But if you don't have a backup and the data on your computer is worth it to you, the FBI often recommends to just pay the ransom because the hackers are that good at locking you out.
Didn't that happen to Merck? Like, I think it was.
It's happened to even on bigger scales than that. It's happened to entire cities.
Happened to Baltimore City.
Yeah.
It happened to a real estate company in California that had 1,400 agents, and they provided their computers, and they were tied into a central system. So they got all 14, they got the entire company and everything locked down at once and asked for $14 million in ransom.
They didn't
The
have to
company decided not going to do it. They just bought everybody computers
And so sorry about your data.
But still, the cost of
But
that
yeah, so think about being an agent and losing this.
and not having a backup.
And even though the company's going to provide you another one, and maybe they have a corporate backup that can get you most of your stuff back, you're running around for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever, with nothing.
What about your contacts? That's what's.
Yeah, so it's very easy to have a current backup, and then that's just not a problem. These things are so good now, you just push a button and it all comes back.
Yeah.
So
That's
what's the
just
best
happened
way
to my sister.
Oh.
Ransomware?
Mm-hmm. They asked for $300,
Yeah.
and her husband hates computers. He's like, "Nope, you ain't paying it. You're getting rid of the computer."
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's part of their trick, is they don't make it a super high amount, so
So
you kind of say, you know what, it may just be easier.
They try to look
say,
you up enough to
"I
figure
got
out what they think you'd be willing to pay.
Yeah, and she was thinking, "Well, I'll get all my pictures back. That's worth $300."
Right.
Right.
And that's very often the case. If you've got irreplaceable data, usually pictures on there or documents, something that you don't have stored anywhere else that's valuable to you, you'd probably be willing to pay some amount of money for it if someone stole it from you. So that's why it's so effective. But these that I have up on the screen are a couple of the backup services I recommend. The logo on the bottom is Time Machine, which is specific to Mac computers. But if you have Mac, I highly recommend using it. It's built in and comes with the computer. Carbonite is for both Windows and Mac. I have it on my Windows computer at home, and if I had a Windows laptop, I'd have it on that as well. It's a cloud-based service, so you have to be connected to the internet for it to back up, but it's 100% automatic and updates things in real time. It costs about $60 a year, a little less if you get multiple years at a time, but $50 to $60 a year. And anytime you add or change something on your computer, it updates your backup. You can even go back a few days. It saves multiple versions. And you realize, oh shoot, I must have deleted that last Tuesday when I did whatever, and I need it back. You can go to last Tuesday's version of your Carbonite backup and grab that file. You can go buy a new computer and just log into Carbonite as the very first thing, and then whoosh, everything dumps itself right back on.
Does it slow down your computer at all, do you think?
Not really, only if you have a very slow internet connection and you just added a bunch of files that it's trying to upload. It could slow down your internet traffic, but the computer itself, no, it doesn't slow it down.
I have an off question. I know that sometimes when I'm working at night and I get on my my Wi-Fi, and sometimes I have to connect it to my hotspot, but there's another Wi-Fi that comes up and it says watching you, killing you softly in the title. So I'm like, what is that? And I don't think anybody's got any internet around me
They must.
so that makes me worry because I don't know what that is.
There's a Wi-Fi in Kroger's parking lot that comes up as FBI. I'm
Yeah.
watching you.
There's one in range of my house called FBI Surveillance Van.
That's it, yeah.
Somebody's just being clever.
And when I was in college, in a dorm room, there are 100 in range of you because everyone's got their own, and kids come up with the really weird names. They even start sending messages to each other like, hey, I'm in this room. If you're above me, be quiet. And they just list it as their Wi-Fi name. So everyone can see. But yeah, something must be broadcasting that network in range of you.
Well, it makes me worry and think like, is there something like, I never click on it, but it just makes you think about like, why is it there? Is there something going on that I don't know about? Or
Not necessarily. There's nothing on your computer making that happen.
Another Wi-Fi.
It's some other hotspot somewhere.
Somebody else.
Someone has named it that.
What's the deal with everybody saying now that hackers can watch you from your smart TV? Is that true?
I am always hesitant to say that something can't be done because hackers are really, really good.
But is there a camera? There's a camera.
But a lot of smart TVs do have cameras nowadays
is that a camera?
because you can do that. Yeah, that's a camera.
FaceTime.
But you can do video conferencing, but also so that you can like change the channel by swiping your hand or pause it by putting your hand up like that. Things like that smart TVs are doing nowadays.
Tape over it like we used to do with our computers. when we
You
were
can,
scared of that.
and some computers now are even coming with a little built-in slider to cover the camera.
They literally just see me like this all day.
Yeah. The other thing that some laptop models are doing, like mine, is they have a little LED light that is hardwired to the camera. Anytime power is flowing to the camera for any reason, the light comes on. It's not something that a hacker could turn off. It's just a very simple low-tech wire that if electricity is flowing to this thing, that light comes on. So you always know if it's in use or not. And for right now, I have software open to broadcast this to our YouTube channel. I'm not using the webcam, but the software has it ready to use so that light is on. So anyway, to circle back to the smart TV thing, it's theoretically possible, but very unlikely because the amount of effort and talent it would take to actually do that is reserved for people who are going to target people that they can really get big money from. People who are that skilled are very rich criminals.
I think you're saying we don't have big money.
I mean they're going to target banks and celebrities so that they can sell the pictures of the celebrity in their house.
They don't want to see us in our pajamas. Smart TVs in your bedroom now, though, too. I mean,
Yeah,
I could see sex offenders and pedophiles
right, really. Yeah.
absolutely going for that.
Yeah. If
It's not always related to money.
if there was ever a breach, and that even is related to money because the people who could hack it aren't necessarily the sex offenders, they would sell it to them. But if there's ever a breach, some smart TV company gets hacked, then the way it would pop up is on the dark web. There are sites for sex offenders and whatnot to purchase things like that, and they would purchase a live stream to your smart TV. Not to scare you, but there's not really anything you can do about it other than put a piece of tape over the camera. Yeah. So this little graphic is to explain VPNs. Stands for Virtual Private Network, and this is another step you can take that is a little bit extreme, not usually needed, but there's not much negative to it. A VPN, instead of letting your internet traffic travel directly between your computer and the websites that you're talking to, which could be intercepted by someone who's on your Wi-Fi network or is behind the website, it creates a encrypted tunnel for your traffic specifically to go straight to wherever you're trying to send it. It actually takes it to their VPN server along the way and then bounces it out to where you want to go. So a side effect of that process is websites also cannot track your real world location or your personal information, anything like that. A VPN is just something that runs in the background on your computer. The downsides are that sometimes it can slow you down a little bit, depending on what kind of server you're connecting to, and it can cause certain types of websites and other functions to not work sometimes. Like sometimes it's harder to, if you have a VPN, you can still print to our office printers, but if you have one, I have to disable it to install them in the first place. If you're trying to talk to your email server, it might think that you are not in a place where you usually are, so instead of using your saved password, it'll make you log in again. Or if you log into your bank website twice, you log in once, close it, and then go back and open it again, your VPN might have bounced your location across the country, and your bank is going to think they just logged in 5 minutes ago from Virginia, now they're trying to log in from Indiana. That's fraud, lock down the account. So those are some of the less common side effects of VPNs, but if you're doing something sensitive, like if you're worried about using your computer for online banking or whatever, we can talk one-on-one more about VPNs if you want.
Spencer, can you talk a little bit about a hotel or a coffee shop network versus using your phone as a hotspot?
Sure. The danger in public Wi-Fi, like he said, in a hotel or a coffee shop, and I want to reiterate hotels because even though each room looks like it has its own, they're all connected. If you're on your hotel Wi-Fi, someone else anywhere in the hotel who knows what they're doing can see your traffic. But on a public Wi-Fi network, a hacker can, and they do this all the time, they'll walk into Starbucks and set up shop and just sit there. They can not necessarily control your computer just because you're on that network, but they can look at what is traveling to and from your computer over that Wi-Fi network.
Well, see, that's what I'm worried about, what could be happening with that weird thing from a Wi-Fi.
You don't need to be worried if you're not connected
As
to
long
it.
as you don't join that network.
Right.
Okay, all right.
But if you're at Starbucks and so are they, and you log into something, if they're good, they could see your username and password just because you logged into that site on a public Wi-Fi. So most smartphones nowadays can create their own hotspot. They usually don't have an unlimited amount of data depending on your cell phone plan, but if you're traveling, that is always the safe alternative to public Wi-Fi. Turn on your phone's hotspot because it's got a password that you came up with. No one else is going to be able to get onto it and do your web browsing that way. Beyond this, the goal this morning, beyond just trying to scare you and make you aware of all this stuff, is to also learn some steps that you can take to protect yourself against stuff like this. Easy habits that you can get yourself into. So we came up with this weekly checklist. The first two are not necessarily the most important, but they're listed first because you should do them first. Checking available disk space and cleaning up unneeded files just to make sure that you're not letting your hard drive get cluttered and packed full, which can prevent some of these later steps from working efficiently. Someone asked yesterday, at what point does your hard drive being full start to slow down your computer? And the answer is it doesn't really anymore. Not until it's at 95, maybe even 99% capacity does it start to actually affect anything. Just because of the way the new type of hard drives work. But you should still make sure that you're not letting it get completely full. Beyond that, at least weekly, you need to be checking for updates. If you're someone who just clicks the little X on the notification that your computer needs to do updates, you should have it in your calendar at least weekly to sit down and make sure everything is up to date. That means your operating system, Microsoft Office, Adobe Acrobat, any software on your computer. It doesn't take long to check updates. Yeah.
I get confused about, will this, like, with what's popping up, is it a hacker or is it really something to load?
If you're ever concerned about that,
Yeah.
you could close the notification and just go in and manually check if you need updates. And I had enough people ask yesterday how to do that I'm going to make a video about it.
Okay.
How to check if Windows needs updates, how to check if Microsoft Office needs updates. And I'll make one for Macs too, because there are enough people who have those.
We can with our phones because it'll keep telling us that 80,000 times.
Right. Yeah. So I'll make a few short, probably like 30-second videos, and then I'll send them around explaining how to do that. Another note, and I put it on the checklist as its own step because it's that important. After you update, restart your computer. Every time you update something or install a new program, just restart before you start using it. Then, after your updates are done, run a malware scan. The program I recommend for that is Malwarebytes. It's free. Malware, BYTES. And it just sits there in your system tray. You can click on it, click Start Scan. And if your computer isn't slow for another reason, it takes less than 10 minutes to run a complete scan. It'll tell you if anything's wrong, and then it'll get rid of it for you. If it found anything, restart again. It'll often prompt you to, but make sure you say yes. Go ahead and restart. And then, again, at least weekly, back up your computer. Any questions about this?
No, it just takes time.
It does. Once you know how to do each of these things, though, this takes less than 15 minutes. And I think that it's worth it to you to mitigate risk to find 15 minutes a week. Put it on your calendar so that you just plan around it. And whether it's first thing in the morning on Fridays or in the evening sometime when you know you're usually at home on your laptop, whatever works for you, just make a routine out of it. Yeah.
Do you need an external hard drive to back up your computer?
You can use an external hard drive to back it up. And with a Mac, with Time Machine, that's how it works. I have an external hard drive that sits on my desk at the office, and whenever I need to make a backup, I just plug it in, and I don't have to. Time Machine doesn't make you say go or anything. You just plug in your drive and it backs up.
What about my Chromebook? Everything's cloud-based in that, right?
Yeah, so if you're using, let me rephrase.
My Chromebook.
If all the information that you care about on that computer is stored in the cloud, then you're fine. The real question you should ask yourself is, could this be stolen today? I could get a new computer and I'd be fine. If the answer is yes, then you're good to go. Whether that's because you only care about what's in your Dropbox or your Google Drive, or because you have a complete backup. You just want to make sure that you could recover from scratch if you needed to. The last slide here is this document that exists in dotloop that we created to help you broach this topic with your clients. It explains some key points specifically to get on the phone with your realtor whenever you receive an email or text about wiring instructions. And then there's also, I forget exactly where it is, but there's a sheet somewhere to get a signature that waives our liability should anything like that happen.
There's in Loop, the Virginia Realtors came out with a wire fraud addendum. Remember that? It got added, a paragraph got added to all the listing agreements and all the contracts that just says, hey, this happens. Then there's a separate addendum you can use that says, hey, this happens, and I'm not going to blame my realtor if it happens to me. So it's a good way to have that conversation, and then also have them signing off that they realize it's not our fault. In fact, we're warning them about it.
It's in the last bit of the contract.
It's in every contract, right? But not the liability.
Something I do with that too is I always, technically because the contracts are copyrighted, we're not allowed to give them out, just blank. But if you create one as a sample and like have it like with the sample watermark on it,
Right.
you can give that out, and including the wire cross stuff. But I give that out to my clients when I have my very first conversation, even my
Right.
sellers.
Yeah, to look over.
Yeah, and that way, because if you wait until you're writing an offer to do it, like you may be rushing so fast to get through it that you don't actually have the conversation. So if you give it on the front end, and then you get to follow up on it when you're actually writing the offer, it's a good practice.
You want to have that conversation as early as possible. The most vulnerable person in the whole whole circle of communication is going to be your client, probably, unless for some reason they're very tech savvy and have secured all their stuff. But usually it's going to be the client. Next to them, it's probably going to be you. If you're a hacker and you're thinking, do I target the bank, the title agency, or the realtor? Generally, based on stereotypes, they're going to go for the realtor because they're going to think that you're the least educated, or you're going to have the email account that's the least secure out of those people. So if they can get to your client, they will. If not, they're going to target you. And so maybe your client is even already hacked. Maybe someone is in their email account and has been for months, and now they see, oh, this person's about to buy a house. Okay, let's keep an eye on this one. So you want to just make them aware as soon as possible.
What's the name of that document?
In Dotloop, I think it's called Financial Scams.
These guys are so good, and the mail programs have all kinds of things built in. So once they hack in there, they can actually set up little rules and alerts so that if anything if the word closing or settlement or wire comes through in any of your emails, it alerts them, and they know what closing's coming up. Time to pounce on this one.
So they can do hundreds of these at a time.
Under millions of people's emails, just waiting for these right words to come up. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So with our two-factor authentication, that is a big step in keeping ours safe. Even if somebody had my username and password, if they tried to sign in from a device that wasn't mine, they'd have to have that second code.
If we tell our clients to set up this two-factor authentication, if they're already being hacked, can that just take care of it? And
Yeah, if you have an email account that does not have two-factor authentication, and then you turn it on, any device that has an active session will then ask to be recertified, meaning you have to log back in. So yeah, they'll have to type in the password again and do that. I do recommend, though, to people who are turning on two-factor for the first time to change your password at the same time, just to be absolutely sure. A lot of email services, I know Gmail at least is the only one that I know for sure, but you can see a list of all the active sessions, the name of the device that your account is logged in on, its real-world location, the last time the account was accessed on it. And then you can, even if there's one you don't recognize, you can revoke access.
So it will, like if they do that, then they won't be able to get into any future information. I mean, that might be a thing to tell people to do.
The only thing that would still maybe happen is if they set up a rule, like he was just saying. If when they got hacked, they set up a rule to forward all emails to the hacker's own address, and then forward it but not mark it as read so that there's no trace that it actually happened. And they can even make a rule to delete the record of that sent email after it was forwarded, so that there really is no trace other than if the person went into their rules and saw that it was there.
But they would gonna be able to make any emails without people knowing, and that's something maybe people should check too. The sent files to see what's gone out from your email too.
Mhm.
And I said this yesterday in Harrisonburg too. I don't think, in the 2.5 years I've been here, I've only been asked to do it once, but I'd be willing anytime to sit down with you and your clients if there's ever a concern about anything like this. I'll audit their computer for them if they want me to and make sure that everyone is secure. Any other questions?
On Carbonite, can't you buy that for multiple computers under one?
Yeah, under one account. Yeah, you can.
I think I'll be visiting you to check on my computer.
Okay.
Well, I'll have an appointment.
That's what I'm here for.
Did you talk about like password keeper programs?
Oh yeah, that came up yesterday because people were asking about using the same password for multiple sites.
Who does that?
Let me see a show of hands. Who uses the same password for at least 3 different sites?
If one of them is your bank,
Do we have an
Change it now.
Andrea in this office?
a what?
Andrea?
Yeah, Andrea Reef in Harrisonburg,
And Andrea
She's
Dorman.
Harrisonburg.
and Andrea Dorman in Harrisonburg. There's 2 in Harrisonburg.
Yeah, Andrea Reed.
Yeah.
She's in our Harrisonburg office?
So that's not good. Using the same password for things. There are programs out there that make it easy enough that there's really no excuse for it anymore. And this is another thing where there are different things available for Mac versus Windows, but Mac has a feature built into it called Keychain that will automatically store and autofill your passwords at the base operating system level, so that any program or website you're on, it can save your passwords for, so you don't have to worry about remembering them. You can make different ones. On Windows itself doesn't do that. Google Chrome does, or Firefox does, but that's just for when you're visiting websites. It wouldn't work for programs that you have to log into. There are third-party software that I recommend that can go across multiple devices, even onto your phone, to save and autofill passwords. The 3 big ones are 1Password, Dashlane, and LastPass. I don't know the exact pricing information for all of them, but it's something you want to look into. You can see which one's the best fit for you. But you pay a subscription depending on how much you want, how many passwords you need, and how many devices you have. It's probably between $5 and $20 a month. But you just install it on all of your devices. Every time you enter a password that it doesn't recognize, that isn't already in its database, it'll pop up and say, hey, do you want to add this to your LastPass? And you say yes. And then all you have to remember is your one master password for this program that has them all saved. And it'll just autofill everything for you. So there's no excuse to not make a unique password. Some of these, specifically the Apple Keychain, will even suggest passwords for you now that are these huge 32-character, completely randomized nonsense passwords. But because you don't have to remember it, you might as well be as secure as possible. So that's a big time commitment to go through every internet account you've ever used and make sure it has a unique password, but it's worth doing for anything that matters. Making sure that your Pinterest password is different from your Twitter password is probably not the biggest deal in the world, but anything related to your business or money should be unique. So if that's something that you're not comfortable doing on your own, we should schedule a meeting for an hour or 2 and sit down together and do that. This is the time of year to do it.
So if you've got your passwords saved on your computer through like Gmail, if they hack your computer, they can get all those passwords that's saved.
Yeah. That's why these programs don't just automatically do it. You do have to remember one master password so that every time you turn on your computer, the first time it wants to autofill something, you have to type in your master password to give it access. Just so that if someone were to hack or steal your computer, they wouldn't They wouldn't have access to everything.
Thanks for scaring us half to death.
Like I said, it's a healthy fear of the ocean.
After yesterday's meeting, we decided we're just going back to writing each other letters, we're gonna stamp on it, wait for a week, you know.
Wax seals.
Yeah.
That happened to me yesterday on City National. I went in, I said, and I called him and I said, I'm typing in my password and it's telling me that it's not correct. Well, it wouldn't tell you that if it wasn't true. You're not typing it incorrectly. I said, yes, I am. So we went back and forth. She said, let's just reset it. And so I did. But that exact same thing you're talking about.
I'd be wary that you were actually on their real website. If you were actually certain that the password was correct and it was telling you it was wrong.
She said, get out of it and log back in.
Yeah.
Or go back and
Yeah.
go in.
It's good that you reset it. You should probably also change anything else that uses the same password that you had on that. If anything else does, then good. You're fine. But you probably were on one of those phishing sites somehow.
It was crazy. I was like, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll hand it over to Paul then. Stick around for the 2020 success meeting. And let me know if you want to schedule an appointment to go through any of your stuff to secure it.
I want to make sure that I have that authentication. Or whatever the thing that
Yeah.
is on here.
Sure. Thank you.
Just give me my laptop.
There's muffins and bagels in the bag over there.
I'm a little hungry. I'm just gonna get some.
They were supposed to be cut in half, and they got there and they didn't know what the note was. Just give them to me. I got it.
Well, they did give us knives at least.
There.
Better?
We got an email the other day. I was asking you, I was wondering if you think that this session would be helpful for me as well. I don't know if it's more tailored to agents.
That's what I call my client.
Because I don't really have my own business, but you know,
Actually, today's probably would be. The first session, not as much because it was more so about like how to track your income and expenses. But you're not going to have that. Today's is really going to be talking about, and the reason I think we help you know that is introducing marketing stuff for individual agents. You may want to ask some of the same questions like, why are you doing the things you're doing? What's the
Let's go right down the carrier for today.
And then next week,
Okay, I'll check and see. Thank you.
may also be helpful because we're going to actually be talking a little
Did
bit
you
more
mean to
about
send me a scan this morning?
some general marketing
Excellent.
ideas.
I got a scan. Yeah, it was
For generating
buyer's
leads.
agreement that had your
How to
name on
reach
it.
out to
Each
your
meeting
agents.
at 8:30 or so.
So,
You might need to rescan it if you meant to send it to yourself and it went to me instead. I'm not sure.
Oh, what came to my computer? Okay.
You might have just checked both of us.
Okay, I probably did because when you do that thing on the printer, it goes so fast and it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No
Okay.
big deal. I just want to make sure you got it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Simple elephant check, do you want that, or should I just give it to Joe?
Either one.